The arena roared with the thunderous applause of thousands. Alien species from across the galaxy filled the massive stadium, their varied appendages gesturing wildly as credits changed hands through betting terminals. The Chaos Arena, a colossal structure hanging in orbit around the lawless world of Nexus Prime, was having its championship match. Kale stood at the entrance tunnel, his heart hammering against his ribs. He was tall for his species, with dark hair falling across his forehead and sharp features that betrayed his nervousness despite his efforts to appear calm. His combat suit, patched in several places, contrasted sharply with the gleaming armor worn by previous contestants. "Last chance to back out, off-worlder," growled the arena handler, a hulking four-armed being with yellowish skin. "Nobody would blame you. Serafina hasn't been defeated in 17 standard cycles." Kale gripped his shock staff tighter. "I didn't come this far to quit." The handler shrugged all four shoulders simultaneously. "Your funeral. Remember, standard rules apply until one combatant submits or is incapacitated. Death is permitted but not required." He leaned closer, his breath hot and rancid. "Though with her, death is usually what happens." Kale nodded grimly. He hadn't come to the Chaos Arena seeking glory or wealth like most contestants. His homeworld, Terralus, had been under the brutal occupation of the hegemony for nearly a decade. The resistance was failing, and rumors suggested that the full planetary subjugation was imminent. His only hope lay in the legendary prize of the arena, enough credits to hire mercenaries, buy weapons, or perhaps even secure political intervention. And if the stories were true, there was something even more valuable to be won today. The entrance portal slid open, and blinding light engulfed Kale. He squinted as he walked forward, the deafening roar of the crowd washing over him. The arena's anti-gravity field gave his steps a slight bounce as he moved toward the central platform. And then he saw her. Serafina stood in the center of the arena, her presence commanding attention even before she moved. She was humanoid, with alabaster skin that seemed to glow under the harsh lights. Her hair, a cascade of silver that reached her waist, stirred gently in the artificial wind. Her combat suit was unlike any Kale had seen, a seemingly delicate arrangement of iridescent scales that shifted colors with her movements. But it was her eyes that stunned him most, deep violet orbs that held the cold emptiness of deep space. The arena's announcer, a holographic projection of a multi-faced entity, spun above the crowd. "Behold the champion of the Chaos Arena. 17 cycles undefeated. The Empress of Combat, the deadliest beauty in the galaxy, Serafina." The crowd erupted. Some chanted her name, while others made guttural noises of appreciation or fear, depending on their species. And today's challenger, from the distant system of Terralus, a surprise finalist who defeated 3 seeded warriors, Kale. The response was notably less enthusiastic, with scattered applause mixed with jeers and dismissive laughter. Kale approached the platform, hyper-aware of every step. Throughout the qualifying rounds, he'd relied on quick thinking and adaptability rather than brute strength. His victories had been narrow, often secured in the final moments when his opponents underestimated him or grew careless. But Serafina would be different. The legends surrounding her were too consistent to be mere exaggeration. As he reached the platform, Kale finally saw what everyone whispered about, the inscription carved into the arena's central ring. In elegant script that continuously translated itself for all species, it read, "The one who defeats me may do anything, and I shall call them master." Serafina's gaze met his, emotionless and evaluating. "Another one who thinks he's special," she said, her voice surprisingly melodic despite the disdain in her words. "What desperate dream brings you here to die, off-worlder?" Kale didn't answer. The combat bell sounded, and instantly Serafina was moving. She crossed the distance between them with unnatural speed, a blur of silver and iridescence. Her first strike nearly ended the match immediately, a palm thrust toward his chest that Kale barely dodged by throwing himself sideways. The platform where he had stood fractured with spiderweb cracks. Kale rolled to his feet, activating his shock staff. The weapon hummed to life, crackling with blue energy. Serafina smiled, the first expression he'd seen on her face. "Interesting choice," she said, circling him. "Most prefer energy blades or pulse weapons." Kale kept his stance low, tracking her movements. "I'm not most people." "No," she agreed. "You're just another corpse who doesn't know it yet." She attacked again, a flurry of strikes that Kale blocked with his staff. Each impact sent painful vibrations through his arms. She was holding back, he realized, testing him, playing with him. For 10 excruciating minutes, Kale remained on the defensive, saving his energy while studying her patterns. Serafina was extraordinarily fast and strong, but there was something mechanical about her perfectionism. Each attack sequence, while devastating, followed implicit rules of combat. "Stop dancing and fight," she hissed after Kale evaded another lethal combination. Kale saw his opening. "As you wish." He feinted with his staff, then dropped to the ground as she moved to counter, sweeping her legs. Serafina jumped over his sweep with balletic grace, but Kale had anticipated this. He thrust his shock staff directly upward, catching her mid-leap. The crowd gasped as electricity surged through Serafina's body. She landed awkwardly, but recovered with inhuman quickness, her eyes now glowing with anger. "First blood to you," she acknowledged. "It's been a while since anyone managed that." What followed was brutality wrapped in lethal artistry. Serafina stopped holding back, unleashing a storm of attacks that pushed Kale to his absolute limits. Twice he was knocked down, once so hard that his vision blurred. Blood trickled from a cut above his eye, and his ribs screamed in protest with each breath. The crowd had fallen silent, entranced by the unexpected duration of the match. Kale should have been defeated minutes ago. Serafina paused, keeping her distance. "You're resilient," she noted, not even breathing hard. "But this ends now." She raised her hand, and to Kale's shock, energy began to coalesce around her fingers, a violet glow that pulsed with deadly promise. The rumors were true. She wasn't just a physical combatant, but wielded some form of energy manipulation. As she prepared to unleash what would surely be a killing blow, Kale made his move. Instead of retreating, he charged directly toward her. It was so unexpected, so contrary to survival instinct, that Serafina hesitated for a crucial fraction of a second. Kale threw his shock staff like a spear, not at Serafina, but at the control node embedded in the platform beneath her feet, the gravity regulator he had noticed during his study of arena schematics the night before. The staff impaled the node with a shower of sparks. Instantly, the artificial gravity in Serafina's section of the platform reversed. Unprepared, she was flung upward toward the energy-dampening field that formed the arena's ceiling, a safety measure to prevent high-powered weapons from harming the audience. Serafina hit the field with a crack of discharged energy. Her own gathered power rebounded against her, and she fell back to the platform as gravity normalized. She landed hard, momentarily stunned. Kale didn't waste the opportunity. He leaped forward, retrieving his staff and pressing it against her throat, the energy field humming dangerously. "Yield," he gasped, his own body trembling with exhaustion and pain. Serafina stared up at him, violet eyes wide with disbelief. For a moment, he thought she would continue fighting, could see the calculations running behind her eyes. Then, something shifted in her expression, a mixture of resignation and curiosity. "I yield," she said, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent arena. The crowd's shocked silence lasted 3 heartbeats before erupting into chaos. Shouts of disbelief, rage, and exultation filled the massive space. The announcer was babbling incoherently about the historic upset. Kale stepped back, allowing Serafina to rise. She moved with fluid grace despite her defeat, straightening to her full height. Then, to Kale's astonishment, she slowly knelt before him, head bowed. When she looked up, her expression was unreadable, but her eyes held something new, a complex mixture of emotions Kale couldn't decipher. "The one who defeats me may do anything," she recited, her melodic voice carrying despite the crowd's roar. "And I shall call you master." The aftermath of Kale's victory was a whirlwind of confusion and spectacle. Guards surrounded him as he was escorted from the arena platform to what they called the Champion Sanctuary, a luxurious suite within the station. Serafina followed silently, a step behind him, her presence raising the hairs on the back of his neck. "Your winnings, champion," announced an official of the arena, a slender humanoid with translucent skin that revealed shadowy organs beneath. He presented a data crystal. 20 million credits, access to the champion spacecraft, private quarters, and of course. He glanced at Serafina with an unreadable expression. Complete authority over the former champion, as tradition dictates. Kale accepted the crystal awkwardly. "I don't understand this tradition. Is she property now?" The idea made him uncomfortable. The official's skin rippled in what might have been amusement. "The tradition predates my employment. Serafina established it herself many cycles ago. She can explain its intricacies." He bowed and withdrew, leaving Kale alone with Serafina in the opulent room. For a long moment, neither spoke. Serafina stood motionless, eyes downcast in a show of deference that seemed painfully artificial coming from someone of her power. "You don't need to stand there like that," Kale finally said. "And I'd rather you didn't call me that title." Serafina raised her eyes, studying him. "The pledge is binding. You defeated me fairly. The title is yours by right, as is my service. I don't want a servant. I came here for the credits to help my world." Something flickered in her expression. Surprise, perhaps. Noble. Unusual. She moved to a viewport that revealed the vast expanse of space beyond the station. "What will you do now, if not exercise your rights as victor?" Before Kale could answer, the suite's communication panel chimed. A gruff voice emerged. "Champion, your presence is requested by the arena directors for the formal recognition ceremony. 1 hour." Kale acknowledged and turned back to Serafina. "What happens at this ceremony?" "Formalities, declarations. You'll be presented to important patrons of the arena." Her voice became subtly different, more urgent. "However, I would strongly advise that we not attend." "Why?" Serafina's posture changed almost imperceptibly. "Because, Master, you are not supposed to win today." Kale tensed. "Explain." "The arena is not merely entertainment. It's a power structure controlled by a shadow organization called the Consortium. They use it to generate revenue, yes, but also to identify and acquire individuals with special abilities." She met his eyes directly. "I was meant to remain champion until a specific candidate of their choosing defeated me. You have disrupted their plans." Kale felt cold realization wash over him. "They'll try to eliminate me. Almost certainly. Or worse, capture you for study, as they might believe you have hidden abilities that allowed you to defeat me." Her voice lowered. "They've already disabled your communication access to outside systems. There are 3 surveillance devices in this room alone." "How do you know all this?" "I've been champion for 17 cycles. I hear things. I observe." A tight smile appeared on her face. "I'm also very good at appearing compliant while remaining attentive." Kale's mind raced. "We need to leave immediately." "Yes, Master." The title now carried a different weight. Not subservience, but acknowledgement of an alliance. "I know the arena's security protocols and hidden passages. My ship, now yours, is fully stocked and ready for departure. Can we reach undetected?" "With difficulty, but yes. We must move quickly, however." She glanced at a chronometer. "The directors will realize something is wrong when we don't arrive for the ceremony." Kale checked his weapons, the shock staff and a small blaster he'd concealed against regulations. "Lead the way, but drop the master thing when we're alone." "My name is Kale." Serafina tilted her head slightly. "As you wish." "Kale, though in public, I must maintain appearances. For both our safety." She moved to a wall panel and pressed a sequence of hidden controls. A section of the wall slid open, revealing a narrow passage. "Maintenance tunnels," she explained. "We need to reach docking bay 7. Stay close." The tunnels were dimly lit and claustrophobic, designed for service droids rather than humanoids. They moved swiftly, Serafina navigating the maze with confident precision. Kale followed, mind churning with questions but focused on escape. After 20 minutes of tense silence, punctuated only by directions from Serafina, they reached a junction where the tunnel widened. Serafina suddenly halted, raising a hand in warning. "Security patrol," she whispered. 2 guards, armed with pulse rifles. Kale strained his ears and heard the rhythmic footsteps approaching. "Options. We can wait, they'll pass. Or we can eliminate them. The latter would alert security sooner, but waiting risks missing our departure window." Kale considered. "If we wait, how soon until the next patrol?" "Approximately 18 minutes. Our window closes in 25. "We wait," Kale decided. "Find shadows." They pressed themselves into a recess as the guards passed, their helmet lights sweeping the corridor. Once the danger had passed, they resumed their journey with increased urgency. Eventually, they reached a small hatch. Serafina entered another code, and it slid open to reveal a bustling docking bay. Ships of various designs were being loaded and unloaded, with crews and maintenance droids scurrying about. "Your ship is the silver cruiser at Bay 7C, Serafina indicated with a subtle nod. "We need to cross approximately 60 meters of open space. I suggest you walk confidently, as a champion would." Kale nodded, straightening his posture. "And if we're challenged, I am still your prize. Anyone would expect you to be taking possession of your new acquisitions." Her expression remained neutral, but Kale thought he detected a flash of something, resentment perhaps, in her eyes. They stepped out into the bay, Kale adopting what he hoped was an imperious stride, Serafina a half-step behind him. Several workers glanced their way, recognition dawning on their faces, but no one interfered. They had nearly reached the ship when a harsh voice called out, "Champion, halt!" A squad of arena security officers approached, led by a severe-looking woman with cybernetic enhancements visible along her jawline. "The directors are expecting you at the ceremony," she stated coldly. "Your presence is not optional." Kale straightened, summoning his most authoritative tone. "As champion, I'm inspecting my new vessel before the ceremony. I'll attend once I'm satisfied with my prize." He gestured to both the ship and Serafina. The security chief's eyes narrowed. "Our orders are to escort you now." Her hand moved to her weapon. Before Kale could respond, Serafina stepped forward. "Forgive me, but my master has given his command. As bound champion, I must ensure his wishes are fulfilled." Her voice carried a strange harmonic undertone that seemed to make the security chief hesitate. The moment of confusion was all they needed. Serafina moved with blinding speed, disarming the chief with one fluid motion and using the woman's own weapon to stun her. Kale, reacting on instinct, activated his shock staff and engaged the remaining guards. What followed was a chaotic blur of combat. Serafina fought with terrifying efficiency, her movements precise and lethal. Kale struggled to keep pace, focusing on defensive maneuvers while Serafina systematically neutralized their opposition. Alarms began blaring throughout the bay as they fought their way to the ship. Workers and other personnel fled the area, leaving only security forces converging on their position. "The ship, now!" Serafina shouted, providing covering fire as Kale scrambled up the boarding ramp. She followed moments later, sealing the hatch behind them. "Can you pilot this?" Kale asked urgently, taking in the advanced controls. "Of course," Serafina replied, sliding into the pilot's seat. Her fingers danced across the navigation panel. "Restraints now." Kale barely had time to secure himself before the ship surged forward, breaking free of its docking clamps with a screech of protesting metal. Serafina navigated through the bay doors seconds before they began closing, the ship shuddering under weapon impacts from pursuing security vessels. "Hang on," she warned, activating systems Kale didn't recognize. The stars outside the viewport stretched into lines as they accelerated to hyperspace, leaving the Chaos Arena and its hunters behind. As the ship stabilized in hyperspace, Kale released his breath in a long exhale. That was close. Serafina's expression remained focused as she monitored the systems. They'll pursue. The consortium doesn't relinquish valuable assets easily. Assets like you? Kale asked quietly. She turned to him, her violet eyes unreadable. Yes, among other things. Why did you help me escape? You could have betrayed me to them. A small, enigmatic smile curved her lips. The pledge is binding, Master. You defeated me. I serve you now. Before Kale could protest the title again, she continued. Besides, 17 cycles is a long time to be someone else's asset. Perhaps I was due for a change. Kale studied her, sensing layers of unspoken truth beneath her words. Where are we heading? A trading outpost in the Viridian system. We can resupply there and evaluate our options. She hesitated. Although, I should warn you that your credits may not be as accessible as you hoped. The consortium likely froze your winnings the moment we fled. Kale's heart sank. My people. I'm sorry, Serafina said, and for the first time, genuine emotion colored her voice. However, all is not lost. This ship contains valuable technology, and I have resources that the consortium doesn't know about. Kale nodded slowly, feeling the weight of responsibility and the complexity of his new alliance with this enigmatic warrior. Then we'll find another way. But first, we need to understand what we're dealing with. He met her gaze directly, starting with who or what you really are, Serafina. She held his gaze for a long moment, then turned back to the controls. A fair request, but such truths are better revealed in safer surroundings. For now, you should rest. We have 12 hours before reaching Viridian, and you're injured from both our combat and our escape. Kale wanted to press further, but recognized the wisdom in her words. His body ached, and exhaustion tugged at his consciousness. Wake me if anything changes, he instructed, rising from his seat. Of course, Master, Serafina replied, the title once again carrying that hint of irony. As Kale made his way to the ship's sleeping quarters, he wondered what forces he had unleashed by winning a battle that was never meant to be won, and what secrets lay behind the violet eyes of the woman who now called him master. The Viridian trading outpost appeared through the viewport as a sprawling collection of interconnected structures orbiting a desolate moon. Ships of various sizes docked and departed in a continuous flow of commerce, while holographic advertisements flickered across the station's exterior. We'll dock at the outer ring, Serafina explained as she guided their ship toward a less populated section. Less security, fewer questions. During the 12-hour journey, Kale had cleaned his wounds and rested fitfully, his mind too consumed with questions to find proper sleep. Serafina had remained at the controls, seemingly tireless, her silver hair now pulled back in a practical braid. Once we're docked, she continued, I suggest we acquire supplies, information, and possibly alternative transportation. This vessel, while valuable, is too easily identified. Kale studied her profile. You still haven't told me anything about yourself or why the consortium is so interested in you. Serafina's hands paused momentarily over the controls before resuming their work. No, I haven't. Her voice was quiet. And I will, as promised. But not here. She nodded toward the approaching station. Too many ears. After docking in a secluded bay and paying a substantial fee for privacy assurances, they disembarked. Serafina had changed from her arena attire into a nondescript jumpsuit that concealed her distinctive coloring, with a hooded cloak that shadowed her face. Kale wore similar anonymous clothing, with his shock staff collapsed and hidden along his forearm. Stay close, Serafina murmured as they entered the bustling main concourse of the outpost. And remember, to anyone watching, you're still my master. I must appear subservient. The market level of Viridian Station was a sensory assault. Hundreds of species trading everything from exotic foods to questionable technology. The air was thick with unfamiliar spices and the ozone tang of electrical components. Voices haggled in dozens of languages, while automated translators created a constant background hum. Serafina guided them through the crowd with practiced ease, stopping occasionally at vendors to purchase supplies with untraceable credit chips. Kale noticed that despite her submissive demeanor, she selected everything herself, merely presenting items for his approval when others were watching. They had nearly completed their shopping when Serafina suddenly stiffened beside him. Without breaking stride, she whispered, "We're being followed. 2 operatives, possibly consortium. The Nexian with the augmented eye ridge and the human female with the scarlet jacket." Kale resisted the urge to look. Options. Continue to the information broker at the end of this corridor. There's an emergency exit beyond his stall. She passed him a small device. If we're separated, this tracker will lead you to a predetermined rendezvous point. They approached a dimly lit booth where a multi-limbed creature was manipulating holographic data streams. Serafina stepped forward, engaging the broker in a quiet conversation in a language Kale didn't recognize. Credits exchanged hands, followed by a data crystal that Serafina quickly pocketed. As they turned to leave, their pursuers made their move. "Champion of the Chaos Arena," the human female called out, her scarlet jacket parting to reveal a weapon. "The consortium requests your immediate return." The crowded market immediately cleared space around them, bystanders recognizing the prelude to violence. Kale kept his voice steady. "I've retired from the arena. Send the consortium my regrets." The Nexian moved to flank them, his augmented eye glowing as it scanned them. "This isn't a request. The champion and his prize are coming with us." Serafina stepped slightly forward. "My master declines. Please allow us to pass." The woman laughed coldly. "Your master is a fraudulent champion. The consortium has evidence the match was rigged. You both face charges of corruption." Kale realized they were creating a pretext for a public arrest. Before he could respond, Serafina moved with her characteristic speed. She hurled a small object at the Nexian's feet, a flashbang that detonated with disorienting brilliance. In the same motion, she pulled Kale toward the exit, her grip surprisingly strong. They ran through the emergency corridor, alarms blaring behind them. The passage emptied into a lower level of the station, a grimy maintenance area with fewer civilians but more hiding places. "This way," Serafina directed, leading him through a maze of pipes and conduits. "We need to reach docking Bay 42. I have an arrangement." "What kind of arrangement?" Kale asked between breaths. "The less trustworthy kind," she replied grimly. They emerged into a smaller docking area where a battered cargo hauler sat with its ramp extended. A burly reptilian being waited at the foot of the ramp, nervously scanning the area. "Serafina," he hissed when he spotted them. "The price has doubled with consortium agents on the station." "Verex, we had an agreement," she replied coolly. The reptilian, Verex, showed his teeth. "Agreements change when risks increase. Double, or find another ship." Kale stepped forward, summoning the imperious attitude of a champion. "You will honor your agreement with my servant, or I will ensure your business suffers permanent damage." Verex assessed Kale with slitted yellow eyes, then glanced at Serafina with new understanding. "The new champion, eh? Fine. Original price, but you ride with the cargo, no passenger quarters." They boarded quickly, finding space among tightly packed crates in the ship's hold. As the vessel detached from the station, Kale turned to Serafina. "How did you arrange this so quickly? And how did you pay him?" Serafina settled against a crate, drawing her knees up. "I've been planning escape routes from the consortium for years. As for payment, let's just say I've been skimming resources whenever possible." A grim smile touched her lips. 17 cycles provides many opportunities. Kale studied her in the dim cargo hold lighting. "Now we have time. Tell me what's really going on. Who are you? What does the consortium want with you?" Serafina was silent for so long that Kale thought she might refuse. Finally, she looked up, her violet eyes seeming to glow in the darkness. "What do you know about the astral confluence?" she asked. Kale frowned. "Ancient civilization, supposedly advanced beyond any technology we have now. Disappeared millennia ago, leaving only ruins and artifacts that most scientists can't make sense of." "Yes," Serafina confirmed. The consortium was formed centuries ago to find, study, and exploit confluence technology. They've had moderate success. Much of the arena systems are reverse-engineered from confluence artifacts. She pushed back her sleeve, revealing what appeared to be intricate silver circuitry embedded in her alabaster skin. "I'm their greatest success," she said quietly. "Or perhaps their greatest theft." Kale leaned forward, examining the patterns that seemed to shift subtly beneath her skin. "What do you mean? I was not born, Kale. I was found in a stasis chamber within a confluence research facility. The consortium discovered me 52 standard years ago, though I appear to have been created much earlier." Her voice remained steady, but something vulnerable flickered in her eyes. "I am not human, despite appearances. I am a Nexus construct, a living interface designed by the confluence for purposes even the consortium doesn't fully understand." Kale sat back, processing this revelation. "You're artificial." Seraphina's expression hardened slightly. "I am alive, with consciousness and free will, within limitations. My design includes certain imperatives that I cannot violate, one of which is the champion's oath you've heard. The one who defeats me may do anything, and I shall call them master. That's why you must follow my commands? Because of your programming?" "In essence, yes." The confluence built hierarchical command structures into their creations. For most of my time with the consortium, their scientists held my obedience through various methods. Then they devised the arena scenario. Her lips curled in a humorless smile. "They thought it elegant. Let champions face me, knowing none could win, while studying my combat capabilities and entertaining the masses. The oath was a failsafe, ensuring that if anyone ever did defeat me, I would still remain under control." "But you helped me escape," Kale pointed out. "You're actively working against the consortium now." "Yes," Seraphina acknowledged. "Because while I must obey my master, my programming allows for interpretation of commands. You never ordered me to support the consortium. In fact," her eyes met his, "you've given me remarkable freedom by not commanding me much at all." Kale felt the weight of this revelation. "So when you call me master, it is both literal and a necessity of my existence." She looked away. "I cannot break the oath, but I can choose how I fulfill it. What happens if I formally release you from service?" Her expression grew troubled. "Unknown. Possibly nothing, or possibly system failure. No one has ever tried. The consortium certainly never intended to." Kale absorbed this information, his mind racing with implications. "What does the consortium want with you specifically? Just your combat abilities?" "No." Seraphina shook her head. "They believe I am a key to unlocking greater confluence technology, specifically a facility they've discovered but cannot access. My internal systems contain codes and interfaces compatible with confluence architecture. And the energy manipulation you demonstrated in our fight, a fraction of my capabilities," she admitted. "The consortium installed limiters to prevent me from reaching my full potential. They fear what I might become without restrictions." The ship lurched as it entered hyperspace, momentarily interrupting their conversation. When the vessel stabilized, Kel asked the question that had been growing in his mind. "What do you want, Seraphina, beyond escaping the consortium?" She looked genuinely surprised by the question, as if no one had ever asked about her desires. "I want," she began hesitantly, "to understand my purpose. The confluence created me for a reason. I have fragments of data, incomplete memories that suggest importance beyond being a weapon or key." Her voice grew stronger. "I want freedom to pursue that knowledge, and perhaps to find others like me, if they exist." Kale nodded slowly. "Then that's what we'll do." Seraphina tilted her head. "You would help me? What of your homeworld? My people need more than just credits to win their freedom. If the confluence technology is as powerful as you suggest, perhaps we can find a way to help both Terralus and you." He extended his hand toward her, not as a master to a servant, but as one ally to another. "Partners." Seraphina regarded his outstretched hand with an unreadable expression. After a moment's hesitation, she took it, her cool fingers wrapping around his. Partners, she agreed, though she added with a hint of irony, Master. As their cargo ship hurtled through hyperspace toward an uncertain destination, Kale realized that what had begun as a desperate gamble for his world's freedom had evolved into something far more complex, and perhaps far more significant than he could have imagined. 3 days after leaving Viridian Station, Varex's cargo hauler emerged from hyperspace near an unremarkable dwarf star. No planets orbited the dim, red sun, only a field of asteroids and debris that suggested a shattered world. "We've arrived," Varex announced over the intercom. "Coordinates, as requested. Now pay the rest and get off my ship." Kale and Seraphina had spent the journey in tense anticipation, sleeping in shifts and planning their next moves. The data crystal Seraphina had acquired on Viridian contained coordinates to this remote location, supposedly the site of a minor confluence outpost that the consortium had yet to discover. "There's nothing here," Kale observed as they gathered their supplies in the cargo hold. "Nothing visible to conventional sensors," Seraphina corrected. She held up a small device she'd constructed from components purchased at the trading post. "This will help us locate the outpost once we're in range." They paid Varex the remainder of his fee, plus extra to ensure his silence, and transferred to a small shuttle attached to the hauler. The reptilian trader seemed eager to depart, his anxiety growing the longer they remained in the seemingly empty system. "What's got him so nervous?" Kale asked as they detached from the larger vessel. "This region has a reputation," Seraphina replied, taking the shuttle's controls with practiced ease. "Ships occasionally disappear here. The consortium dismisses the stories as sensor malfunctions or pirate activity, but—" She glanced at the asteroid field. "I suspect automated confluence defense systems remain active." Kale checked their weapons, his shock staff, 2 energy pistols, and various tools they'd acquired. "Will they target us?" "Unknown," Seraphina admitted, "but my presence may deactivate them. That's the theory, at least." She guided the shuttle toward a cluster of larger asteroids, consulting her detection device periodically. After 30 minutes of careful navigation through the debris field, she slowed their approach. "There," she indicated, pointing to what appeared to be just another dark asteroid. "The outpost." As they drew closer, Kale began to discern unnatural features, geometric patterns, and artificial surfaces camouflaged as asteroid material. What had seemed like natural formations resolved into disguised structures extending from the asteroid's core. "It's massive," Kale breathed. "How has no one found this before?" "Confluence stealth technology," Seraphina explained. "Without the specific detection frequencies, it appears as ordinary space debris." She guided the shuttle toward what seemed to be a smooth depression in the asteroid surface. "This should be a docking port, if the data is correct." As they approached, lines of soft blue light suddenly illuminated along the depression's perimeter. Seraphina tensed, her hands hovering over the shuttle's weapon controls. "We're being scanned," she murmured. The shuttle shuddered as an invisible field took hold of it, gently pulling them toward the asteroid. Seraphina released the controls, allowing the automated system to guide them. "Should we resist?" Kale asked, gripping his shock staff. Seraphina shook her head. "If it wanted to destroy us, it would have already. This is recognition protocol." The depression opened like an iris, revealing a docking bay that glowed with the same soft blue light. Their shuttle was drawn inside, and the external door sealed behind them. Artificial gravity and atmosphere established themselves with barely a fluctuation in the ship's systems. "Remarkable," Seraphina whispered, her violet eyes wide as she studied the perfectly preserved facility. "This outpost has been maintaining itself for millennia." They disembarked cautiously, weapons ready. The docking bay was immaculate, without the dust or deterioration one would expect from an ancient installation. The air was odorless and perfectly temperate. As Seraphina's feet touched the floor, lines of light spread outward from her position, racing along previously invisible circuits in the floor and walls. Symbols began to appear on nearby surfaces, complex, flowing script that shifted and changed as they watched. "What's happening?" Kale asked tensely. The system is recognizing me, Serafina replied, her voice hushed with wonder. It's activating in response to my presence. A holographic interface materialized before her, intricate, multidimensional displays of information that made no sense to Kale. Can you understand it? He asked. Serafina nodded slowly, her eyes tracking the symbols with increasing confidence. Yes, it's coming back to me. Knowledge I didn't realize I possessed. Her fingers moved through the display, manipulating data with growing certainty. This outpost was a research station studying something called the nexus correlation, a fundamental principle of confluence technology. She continued working through the interface while Kale secured the area, confirming they were alone in the immediate vicinity. When he returned, Serafina's expression had grown troubled. I've accessed the station's records, she said quietly. The confluence, they weren't just an advanced civilization, Kale. They were attempting to solve existential problems. Entropy, dimensional stability, the eventual heat death of a universe. And you're connected to this work somehow? I am. She hesitated, searching for words, a component in their solution. A nexus construct is designed to bridge physical and non-physical parameters of reality, to serve as both tool and interpreter. She looked at her hands with new understanding. My combat abilities were merely a defensive design feature, not my primary purpose. What is your primary purpose, then? Kale asked. Before Serafina could answer, an alarm sounded throughout the facility. The holographic display flashed with urgent symbols. We have company, Serafina announced, dismissing the interface with a swift gesture. A consortium vessel just entered the system. Kale's heart sank. How did they find us so quickly? Varex, Serafina spat the name. He must have informed them as soon as we departed. Options. Serafina's expression hardened with determination. We need to reach the central core of this facility. There's equipment there I can use, technology beyond anything the consortium possesses. They moved swiftly through the station, following guidance paths that illuminated under Serafina's feet. The outpost was larger than it had appeared from outside, with corridors that sometimes seemed to bend in impossible directions. Space manipulation technology, Serafina explained when Kale commented on the disorienting architecture. The interior exists partially in folded dimensions. They reached a sealed doorway, marked with particularly complex symbols. Serafina placed her palm against a panel beside it, and the patterns on her skin glowed in response. The door dissolved, revealing a spherical chamber beyond. The core room was a marvel of confluence design. Concentric rings of what appeared to be liquid metal orbited a central crystalline structure that pulsed with inner light. Consoles and interfaces lined the walls, their surfaces coming to life as Serafina entered. We don't have much time, she warned, moving directly to the central apparatus. I need to interface with the core system. Kale took up a defensive position near the entrance. What exactly are you going to do? Access capabilities I was designed for, she replied, placing both hands on the crystal. The circuitry patterns on her skin expanded, spreading up her arms and across her face in glowing lines. The consortium installed limiters to control me. This system can bypass them. The crystal's pulsing intensified, synchronizing with the patterns on Serafina's skin. Her silver hair began to float as if in water, energy visibly flowing between her and the core. A distant explosion rocked the facility. They're here, Kale announced, activating his shock staff. How much? Longer? Almost. Serafina's voice had taken on that strange harmonic quality he'd heard briefly during their escape from the arena. I need to complete the integration sequence. The door behind them partially reformed, then shattered as weapons fire impacted it. Consortium troops in advanced combat armor poured through the opening, led by a familiar figure. The security chief from the arena, her cybernetic jaw now replaced with an even more extensive implant. Secure the construct, she ordered. Kill the imposter champion. Kale met the first wave with desperate skill, his shock staff crackling as it connected with armor and weapons. He fought defensively, trying to buy Serafina time rather than defeat superior numbers. Behind him, The energy emanating from the crystal core intensified to painful brightness. The security chief recognized the danger and shouted new orders. Stop the integration. Target the core. Several soldiers redirected their fire toward the crystal, but their energy bolts dissipated harmlessly against an invisible barrier. Seraphina's voice rang out, resonating with power beyond anything Kale had heard from her before. Too late. A pulse of energy exploded outward from the core, passing through Kale with a tingling sensation but striking the consortium forces like a physical blow. They collapsed, armor systems shorting out and weapons failing. Kale turned to find Seraphina transformed. Her eyes glowed with internal light, and the circuit patterns covered her entire visible skin in shifting, iridescent patterns. She stood taller, her presence somehow more substantial, as if she occupied more dimensions than before. Seraphina, he questioned hesitantly. I am still myself, she assured him, her voice layered with harmonics. But more complete. The limiters are gone, and I have accessed my full capabilities. The security chief struggled to her feet, her cybernetic systems apparently more resistant to the energy pulse. She drew a specialized weapon from her belt, larger and clearly of non-standard design. Prototype Confluence Neutralizer, she snarled. Designed specifically for you. She fired before Kale could intervene. The weapon discharged a stream of pulsating energy directly at Seraphina. Kale shouted a warning, but there was no time to react. The energy struck Seraphina squarely, and then curved around her, as if deflected by an invisible field, before dissipating harmlessly against the wall. Seraphina tilted her head, studying the security chief with something approaching pity. Crude adaptation of technology you don't understand. She made a subtle gesture, and the weapon crumbled to dust in the chief's hands. Another gesture, and the chief herself froze in place, unable to move or speak. We should go, Seraphina said to Kale, her voice returning to something closer to normal. More consortium forces will be coming, and I've learned what we needed from this facility. Kale nodded, still processing the display of power he'd witnessed. This shuttle, no longer necessary. Seraphina approached him, extending her hand. If you trust me, I can transport us directly to our next destination. Kale hesitated for just a moment before taking her offered hand. I trust you. Seraphina smiled, the most genuine expression he'd seen from her. Thank you, Kale. The world around them shimmered, dissolved, and reformed. The Confluence station vanished, replaced by an entirely different environment. They stood in a lush garden beneath an open sky of deep amber. Exotic plants and crystalline structures surrounded them, and in the distance, spires of impossible architecture reached toward the heavens. Where are we? Kale asked in astonishment. A sanctuary world, Seraphina replied, hidden from conventional space by Confluence technology. We'll be safe here while we plan our next move. Kale took in their surroundings, trying to comprehend the sudden transition across what must have been vast distances. Your power, it's incredible. And frightening, she asked, watching him carefully. Surprising, he corrected. But you're still you. Relief softened her features. Yes, more myself than I've been in decades. She released his hand and gestured toward the crystal structures. There are others here, not exactly like me, but Confluence creations and some living beings who have found sanctuary from the consortium and similar organizations. As they walked through the garden, Kale processed everything that had happened. The consortium will still hunt us. Yes, Seraphina agreed, more determinately than ever now. But from here, we can operate beyond their reach while gathering allies and resources. She paused, turning to face him. Kale, there's something important we need to discuss. He recognized the seriousness in her tone. The oath? Your programming. Yes. She met his eyes directly. With my full capabilities restored, I've gained greater understanding of my design. The oath is fundamental to my existence. I cannot simply overcome or ignore it. However, there must be a way to free you from it, Kale insisted. Not exactly free, she corrected, but perhaps redefine. The Confluence built their hierarchical command structures with purpose, but they also valued autonomy and growth. She took a deep breath. There is a protocol, a ceremony of sorts, that can transform the nature of the bond while maintaining its structure. I'll do whatever is needed, Kale said without hesitation. Seraphina's expression softened. It requires genuine willingness from both parties. The master must voluntarily relinquish absolute authority while maintaining the title, essentially becoming a partner rather than commander. It's a paradox by human understanding, but perfectly logical within Confluence philosophy. And after this ceremony, you would still call me master, but it would mean something different? Yes, a title of respect and connection rather than ownership and control. Her violet eyes searched his. Would that be acceptable to you? Kale considered the proposal. If it grants you the freedom you deserve while preserving what you need to function, then yes. More than acceptable. Something like hope brightened Seraphina's face. Then we will perform the protocol when you are ready. She gestured toward the sanctuary before them. But first, let me show you this place and introduce you to those who might help us with both our quests. As they walked side by side through the extraordinary landscape, Kale reflected on how far they had come from that fateful moment in the arena. What had begun as a desperate gamble for his world's freedom had evolved into something far greater. A partnership that might reshape not just their lives, but potentially the future of the galaxy itself. The sanctuary world revealed its wonders gradually as Seraphina guided Kale through its varied landscapes. Gardens gave way to forests of crystalline trees, their translucent branches chiming softly in the gentle breeze. Streams of luminescent water flowed over stones that seemed to shift colors with the changing light. They encountered other inhabitants, some clearly artificial constructs like Seraphina, though none as advanced. Others were organic beings of species Kale had never seen before. All greeted Seraphina with respect, and Kale with careful curiosity. They know what you are to me, Seraphina explained as they walked. The master-construct relationship is recognized throughout Confluence-influence space, though it's exceptionally rare in this age. Their destination was a circular pavilion atop a hill overlooking a valley of swirling mists. At its center stood a pedestal of the same crystal material Kale had seen in the asteroid outpost. This is where we'll perform the protocol, Seraphina said. But first, I've arranged for someone to meet us who can help with your original mission, saving your homeworld. A figure emerged from the mists below the pavilion, tall and willowy with features that seemed to blend elements of various species into something uniquely harmonious. As it approached, Kale realized this being was neither fully organic nor constructed, but something in between. Kale of Terralus, this is Elorian, Seraphina introduced. A synthesis guardian, one of the last remaining. Elorian bowed slightly. The champion and the Nexus construct. Your arrival was foretold in probability matrices long ago. The voice was melodic, gender indeterminate, with the same harmonic qualities that sometimes colored Seraphina's speech. Foretold, Kale questioned. The Confluence had extensive predictive capabilities, Seraphina explained. They mapped countless potential futures before their disappearance. Disappearance, not extinction, Elorian corrected gently. An important distinction. The being turned to Kale. You seek liberation for your world from a conquering force. I have reviewed the situation through our monitoring systems. The hegemony that occupies Terralus is formidable but fundamentally unstable. Can you help us? Kale asked directly. Not with direct intervention, Elorian replied, but with knowledge and tools that will allow your people to free themselves. The being produced a small crystal similar to the data storage devices used throughout the galaxy, but with subtle differences in structure. This contains plans for defensive technology your resistance can construct using available materials. It will selectively disrupt hegemony control systems without causing catastrophic damage. Kale accepted the crystal with careful hands. Thank you. But why help us? Elorian's expression shifted subtly. The Confluence valued balance and natural development. The hegemony, like the consortium, seeks to dominate and exploit without understanding. Such forces must be countered, but carefully without creating worse imbalances. The synthesis guardian moved toward the pavilion's edge. I must return to my duties. When your binding ceremony is complete, seek me again for transportation assistance to Terralus. With that, Elorian stepped into the mists and vanished. Kale turned to Seraphina. You arranged this? I made inquiries, she acknowledged. Your cause is just, and I promise to help. Her expression became more serious. Are you ready for the protocol? It should be performed while we have this sanctuary's protection. Kale nodded. What I need to do? Seraphina guided him to the crystal pedestal. Place your hands here, she instructed, indicating smooth depressions in the surface. As Kale did so, the crystal illuminated from within. Seraphina positioned her hands opposite his, their fingers almost touching. The ritual has 3 components, she explained. Acknowledgement of the existing bond, voluntary transformation of its nature, and mutual commitment to the new relationship. She began speaking in a language Kale didn't recognize, flowing, musical phrases that caused the patterns on her skin to pulse in rhythm with her words. The crystal between them responded, its light synchronizing with her speech patterns. Now, she said, switching back to standard language, repeat after me. I acknowledge you, Seraphina, as bound to me by ancient law and sacred oath. Kale repeated the words, feeling energy tingle through his fingertips as he spoke. I, your master by victory and right, choose to transform the nature of our bond. Again, Kale spoke the words, and the crystal's light intensified. No longer commander and commanded, but partners in purpose and path, equals and although different in nature. As Kale completed this phrase, the light from the crystal expanded to encompass both of them in a sphere of gentle radiance. Seraphina's eyes glowed brilliantly, and the circuit patterns across her skin flowed like liquid silver. I remain your master in name. You remain bound in oath, but we choose mutual respect over dominance, partnership over subjugation. The energy between them pulsed with each word Kale spoke, growing stronger until it was almost blinding. So I declare, so I choose, so it shall be. As Kale finished the final phrase, the energy sphere contracted suddenly, flowing into both of them like water into vessels. Kale gasped at the sensation, not painful, but intensely intimate, as if something of Seraphina's essence briefly merged with his own. When the light faded, they stood facing each other, hands still poised above the now dormant crystal. Seraphina looked unchanged physically, but her posture and expression were subtly different, more open, more present. Is it done? Kale asked softly. Yes, Seraphina confirmed, her voice rich with emotion. The bond remains, but transformed. I am still bound to you, Master. The title now carried warmth rather than irony or obligation, but as an equal partner who chooses her path alongside yours. Kale felt the difference between them immediately. A tension he hadn't fully recognized was gone, replaced by something cleaner, lighter. How do you feel? He asked. Complete, she answered simply. For the first time since my awakening. She smiled, a genuine, unguarded expression. The oath was never meant to be a chain, but a connection between different forms of consciousness. The consortium perverted its purpose. They stepped away from the pedestal, the ceremony complete. As they did, Kale noticed a small contingent of sanctuary residents had gathered at a respectful distance, witnessing the ritual. What now? He asked. Your search for purpose? My world's freedom. Both, Seraphina replied confidently. The consortium must be confronted eventually. They hold knowledge and artifacts crucial to understanding the confluence's ultimate purpose. And the liberation of Terralus can serve as a first step in building alliances against them. She looked out over the misty valley, the amber sky beginning to deepen toward evening. But first we should rest and prepare. Tomorrow, we'll meet with Elorian again and begin our journey to Terralus. As twilight descended on the sanctuary world, Kale and Seraphina walked among the luminescent gardens, discussing strategies and sharing experiences. For the first time, Serafina spoke freely of her fragmented memories from before the consortium found her, impressions of purpose and connection that hinted at the confluence's greater design. Kale, in turn, told her more about his homeworld, its beauty before the occupation, the resistance movement he'd left behind, the family he hoped still survived. With each exchange, the artificial barriers between them dissolved further, replaced by genuine understanding. When they eventually retired to separate chambers provided by their hosts, Kale reflected on the extraordinary path that had led him here. He had entered the chaos arena desperate and alone, seeking only resources to fight a seemingly hopeless battle. Now he stood on the threshold of something far greater, a partnership with a being of extraordinary capabilities, access to ancient knowledge, and a genuine chance to free his people. Serafina, in her own chamber, experienced something she had never known before, true autonomy within connection. The oath remained, binding her to Kale as her master, but its nature had fundamentally changed. She was no longer a possession or tool, but a being who chose her allegiance. For the first time in her conscious existence, she could envision a future shaped by her own desires rather than the commands of others. The next morning, they met with Elorian as planned. The Synthesis Guardian provided them with transportation, a small but advanced vessel of Confluence design that could navigate conventional space while remaining virtually undetectable. The journey to Terralus will take approximately 12 days in your perception, Elorian explained as they prepared to depart. The vessel travels through partial dimensional folds that reduce effective distance. Before they left, other sanctuary residents brought gifts, supplies, information, and small devices of unknown purpose that Serafina accepted with grateful recognition. "You are welcome to return," Elorian told them at parting. "This sanctuary exists for precisely such alliances as yours." As their vessel rose silently into the amber sky, Kale stood at the view screen, watching the extraordinary landscape recede below them. Serafina joined him, her presence beside him now comfortable and natural. "It's strange," he commented. "When you first called me master in the arena, it felt wrong, like I'd taken something from you against your will." "And now?" she asked. Kale considered. "Now it feels like a title I need to earn, to be worthy of the trust you've placed in me." Serafina smiled, the circuit patterns beneath her skin glowing softly with contentment. "That, Kale, is exactly as it should be." Their ship accelerated, the sanctuary world diminishing to a point of light before disappearing entirely as they entered the dimensional fold. Ahead lay Terralus and the beginning of their shared mission, the first step in a journey neither could have imagined when fate brought them together in the Chaos Arena. "The one who defeats me may do anything," she had said. And what Kale had chosen was to set them both free, not by breaking their bond, but by transforming it into something stronger than either of them could have achieved alone.